I've been working as a personal assistant in the music industry for 17 years, and I thought I'd seen every possible way a star could be discovered. Talent shows, street performances, viral videos, but what I witnessed at JFK Airport on the morning of March 3rd, 1996, taught me that sometimes the most extraordinary talent is hiding in the most ordinary places. My name is Patricia Rodriguez, and at the time I was one of Whitney Houston's personal assistants. That morning we were catching a 7:30 a.m. flight to Los Angeles. Whitney had been in New York for a series of meetings about her upcoming film project, and she was exhausted. We'd gotten to the airport early to avoid crowds, arriving around 6:00 a.m. when the terminal was still relatively quiet. Whitney was in what we called her invisible mode: oversized sunglasses, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a leather jacket. Most people wouldn't give her a second glance, which was exactly the point. After 3 days of non-stop meetings, she just wanted to get home. "Patricia, I need coffee," Whitney said as we walked through Terminal 4. "And I need to use the restroom first. Can you grab me a large coffee, black, and meet me at the gate?" I nodded and headed toward the Starbucks while Whitney veered off toward the restrooms. It was a routine we'd done 1,000 times. I ordered the coffee, checked my watch. We had 45 minutes before boarding and started walking toward our gate. But then I got a call from our security coordinator about a scheduling change for our LA arrival. I stepped aside to take the call, expecting Whitney to join me at the gate in a few minutes. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. That's when I started to worry. Whitney was punctual, especially when it came to flights. I called her cell phone. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. I rushed back toward the restrooms, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Had she been recognized? Was there a medical emergency? In my line of work, you learn to expect the unexpected, but you never stop worrying. As I approached the restroom area, I heard something that made me stop in my tracks. Someone was singing. Not just singing, performing. The voice was so pure, so powerful, that it seemed impossible. It was coming from a public restroom at 6:15 in the morning. The voice was singing one of Whitney's songs, but with an emotional depth that gave me chills. I couldn't see who was singing, but I could hear every note clearly. The acoustics in that tiled corridor were creating a natural echo that made the voice sound even more ethereal. I walked closer and saw something that confused me. Whitney was standing outside the restroom entrance, completely still, her coffee forgotten in her hand. She wasn't on her phone. She wasn't checking her watch. She was just standing there listening, with an expression on her face I'd never seen before. "Whitney," I said quietly, not wanting to break whatever moment she was having. She held up one finger. "Wait," without taking her eyes off the restroom entrance. That's when I realized the singing was coming from inside the women's restroom. A moment later, the singing stopped. There was the sound of running water, then a cleaning cart being wheeled. Whitney moved quickly, pushing open the restroom door before I could ask what was happening. I followed her inside and saw something that would change everything. A young woman, probably 19 or 20 years old, was cleaning the mirrors. She was wearing a janitor's uniform, navy blue pants and a matching shirt with JFK maintenance embroidered on it. Her dark hair was pulled back in a bun and she had earbuds in her ears, which explained why she hadn't heard us come in. She was still humming now, lost in her own world, moving her cleaning cloth in rhythm with whatever music was playing in her earbuds. Her back was to us, and she had no idea she was being watched. Whitney stood there for a long moment, just observing. Then she gently touched the girl's shoulder. The girl jumped, yanking out her earbuds and spinning around. When she saw Whitney Houston standing in front of her, the cleaning cloth fell from her hand, and her face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds. Shock, disbelief, fear, and then something that looked like she might pass out. "Oh my God," the girl whispered. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Was I being too loud?" I know I'm not supposed to sing while I'm working. Please don't tell my supervisor. I need this job. Please. Whitney held up both hands in a calming gesture. Slow down, honey. You're not in trouble. I just... Was that you singing a moment ago? The girl nodded, still looking terrified. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. The morning shift is usually quiet, and sometimes I sing to make the time go by faster. I'll stop. I promise. Don't stop, Whitney said softly. Don't you dare stop. What's your name? Maria, the girl said. Maria Santos. Maria, that was your voice. I heard. No recording? No radio? Maria nodded, confused about where this was going. Yes, just me. I was listening to your album on my phone and singing along. I didn't think anyone could hear me. Whitney smiled, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. Maria, I need you to understand something. I've been singing professionally for 15 years. I've worked with the best vocal coaches in the world, and what I just heard coming out of this restroom was one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard in my life. Maria looked at Whitney like she'd just spoken in a foreign language. What? You have a gift? Whitney said. A real, genuine gift. How long have you been singing? All my life, I guess, Maria said quietly. My mother taught me. She used to sing in the church choir in the Philippines before we came here. But I've never had any real training. I just sing. Just sing. Whitney repeated, shaking her head in amazement. Maria, can I ask you something? Would you sing for me right now? No earbuds, no recording, just you and your voice. Maria looked around the restroom nervously. Here, right now? Here, right now, Whitney confirmed. Please, sing anything you want. Maria took a deep breath, and I could see her hands shaking. She closed her eyes, and for a moment, she just stood there, gathering her courage. Then she opened her mouth and began to sing. The song she chose was Whitney's, a deeply emotional ballad about love and loss. But what came out of Maria's mouth wasn't an imitation of Whitney's version. It was something entirely her own. Her voice had a quality that was both powerful and fragile, technically perfect, but emotionally raw. She sang like someone who understood every word, who'd lived through the pain the song described. I've stood in the wings during hundreds of Whitney's performances. I've heard her sing in stadiums, in recording studios, in private moments when she thought no one was listening. But in that airport restroom at 6:20 in the morning, listening to a 19-year-old janitor sing, I heard something that gave me chills that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. When Maria finished, she opened her eyes. Whitney was crying openly now, not bothering to wipe away the tears. Maria, Whitney said, her voice thick with emotion, I need you to tell me your story, all of it. We're going to miss our flight, but I don't care. I need to understand who you are and how you ended up cleaning restrooms at JFK when you should be on a stage somewhere. We moved to a quiet corner of the terminal, far from the crowds. Maria looked uncomfortable sitting down with us, still in her janitor's uniform, still half convinced this was all some kind of elaborate prank. There's not much to tell, Maria said quietly. My family came to New York from Manila when I was 14. My father thought there would be better opportunities here. He was a doctor in the Philippines, but here his credentials didn't transfer. He ended up driving a taxi. My mother cleaned houses. Maria paused, her voice catching. 2 years ago, my father had a heart attack while driving his cab. He died instantly. My mother tried to keep working, but she had diabetes that she'd been ignoring for years. Last year, she died too. Whitney reached over and took Maria's hand. I'm so sorry. I have two younger brothers, Maria continued. 12 and 10. After my mother died, social services wanted to put them in foster care. Split them up. I couldn't let that happen. We're family, so I dropped out of community college, got this job at the airport, because it has benefits and pays slightly better than minimum wage. I work the overnight shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., so I can be home when my brothers get back from school. During the day, I sleep a few hours, make sure the boys do their homework, cook dinner, and I come back here and clean restrooms and empty trash cans until morning. I've been doing this for 8 months now. What about singing? Whitney asked. Have you ever tried to pursue it professionally? Maria laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Biz Houston, I barely have time to sleep. How would I pursue singing? Besides, I don't have money for voice lessons or demo recordings. I don't have connections in the music industry. I'm just a girl from Manila who cleans toilets. Singing is just something I do to make the work feel less lonely. Whitney was quiet for a long moment, staring at Maria with an intensity that I'd seen before. It was the look she got when she was making a decision that nothing could change her mind about. Maria, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer before you respond. Can you do that? Maria nodded, looking scared again. What if I could help you? Whitney said, what if I could connect you with the right people, help you get proper training, maybe even get you a recording contract? Would you want that? Maria's eyes filled with tears. Of course I'd want that. It's all I've ever wanted. But Miss Houston, I can't. I have my brothers. I can't just abandon them to chase some dream. They need me. They've already lost both parents. I'm all they have. What if? Whitney said slowly, you didn't have to choose. What if we could find a way for you to pursue your music and still take care of your brothers? How? Maria asked, her voice barely a whisper. Whitney pulled out her phone and made a call. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I knew that tone. It was her make it happen voice. After several calls and about 30 minutes of conversation, Whitney had put together a plan that would have seemed impossible to anyone who didn't understand how determined she could be when she found someone worth fighting for. Here's what Whitney arranged in that airport terminal while we missed our flight. First, she connected Maria with her own lawyer to help establish legal guardianship of her brothers, ensuring they couldn't be taken away. Second, she arranged for a scholarship program through her foundation to cover the boys' education expenses and after-school care. Third, she set up a meeting with her own vocal coach and a recording producer. And fourth, she did something that surprised even me. Maria, Whitney said, I want you to move to LA. You and your brothers. I have a guest house on my property that's just sitting empty. You can live there rent-free while you work with my vocal coach and develop your sound. The boys can go to excellent schools nearby, and you'll be able to be there for them while also pursuing your music. Maria stared at Whitney like she'd suggested they all fly to the moon. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious, Whitney said. Maria, I believe in you. But more than that, I believe you deserve a chance. You've sacrificed everything for your brothers. That kind of love, that kind of selflessness. It's rare. But you can't pour from an empty cup. Let someone help you for once. But why? Maria asked, tears streaming down her face now. Why would you do this for someone you just met in an airport restroom? Whitney was quiet for a moment before answering. Because 20 years ago, someone took a chance on me. Someone heard me sing in a club and decided I was worth investing in. And because I hear in your voice something that can't be taught, you sing from a place of real emotion, real life experience. That's precious, Maria. That's rare. And I'll be damned if I let the music industry miss out on that. Because you're too busy cleaning restrooms to be discovered. What happened next was like watching a fairy tale unfold in real time. Maria had to give 2 weeks' notice at her job, which Whitney insisted she honor despite offering to pay her more than she made in 6 months. During those 2 weeks, Whitney's team arranged everything, moving logistics, school enrollment for the boys, legal paperwork, everything. I was there the day Maria and her brothers arrived at Whitney's property in Los Angeles. The boys, Manuel and Diego, were wide-eyed and overwhelmed. They'd gone from a cramped apartment in Queens to a guest house that was bigger than anywhere they'd ever lived. "Is this real?" Manuel, the 12-year-old, asked me. "Are we really going to live here?" "It's real," I told him. "Your sister is very special. And Whitney sees that." Over the next 6 months, I watched Maria transform. Not in the superficial way you might expect. She wasn't given a makeover or taught to be someone she wasn't. Instead, she was given the resources to become more fully herself. Whitney's vocal coach, Ron Anderson, told me after their first session that Maria had the most natural talent he'd worked with in 20 years. "She doesn't need to be taught how to sing," he said. "She needs to be taught how to protect her voice, how to perform consistently, how to work in a recording studio. But the gift itself, that's pure and untouchable." But what struck me most wasn't Maria's vocal development. It was watching her learn to accept help, to believe she deserved good things, to see herself as something more than just a caretaker and survivor. Whitney spent hours with Maria, not just as a mentor, but as a friend. They'd sit by the pool talking about life, about loss, but the weight of responsibility. Whitney saw herself in Maria, not the girl who cleaned restrooms, but the girl who'd sacrificed everything for her family. "You know what I love about Maria?" Whitney told me one afternoon. "She hasn't let all this change who she is. She still makes her brothers' lunches every morning. She still checks their homework. She's still the same person, just with more possibilities now." 8 months after that morning at JFK, Maria recorded her first demo. Whitney had connected her with a producer who specialized in developing new talent. The demo included 4 songs, 2 covers and 2 originals that Maria had written. When Whitney played me that demo, I cried. Maria's voice on a professional recording, with proper instrumentation and production, was absolutely stunning. She had a quality that was reminiscent of Whitney's emotional depth, but with her own unique texture and style. The demo was sent to several record labels. 3 of them offered contracts within a week. Maria chose the label that gave her the most creative control and the most supportive development deal. But here's the part of the story that most people don't know. The part that makes it more than just a rags to riches tale. Maria insisted on one condition before signing any record deal. She wanted to establish a foundation to help other young people who were caring for siblings or family members while trying to pursue their dreams. She wanted to use her platform, even before she really had one, to help others in the situation she'd been in. "I got lucky," Maria told me. "I happened to be singing in a restroom when Whitney Houston walked in. But there are thousands of kids out there who are just as talented, just as dedicated, who will never get that lucky break because they're too busy surviving. If I'm going to do this, I want to do it in a way that helps them too." The Maria Santos Foundation was established before she even released her first single. Whitney donated the seed money and helped Maria build a board of directors. The foundation provides financial assistance, mentorship, and resources to young people who are caring for family members while trying to pursue education or career goals. Maria's first album was released 18 months after that morning at JFK. It debuted at number 7 on the Billboard charts. Critics praised her emotionally resonant voice and authentic storytelling. But more importantly, the album connected with people because it was real. Every song came from Maria's lived experience: loss, sacrifice, hope, determination. The music video for her first single featured footage of her old life: the apartment in Queens, JFK Airport, her brothers. It was a deliberate choice. Maria never wanted to hide where she came from or pretend she was something she wasn't. "I want other kids cleaning tables or working overnight shifts to see me and think, maybe I can do this too," Maria told an interviewer. "I want them to know that talent exists everywhere, not just in places where people are looking for it." Whitney was at every major milestone. She was at Maria's first live performance, standing in the wings with tears streaming down her face. She was at the award show where Maria won Best New Artist. She was there when Maria bought a house for herself and her brothers, finally having a permanent home after years of instability. But what I remember most was something Whitney told me about 2 years after discovering Maria. "You know what Maria taught me?" Whitney said. "She taught me that sometimes the most important thing we can do is pay attention." I almost didn't go into that restroom. I almost just walked past. But I heard something that made me stop and listen. And in that listening, in that moment of really paying attention, a life changed. Whitney paused, looking thoughtful. How many times do we walk past extraordinary people because we're not paying attention? How many voices go unheard because they're singing in the wrong place at the wrong time? Maria wasn't in a recording studio or on a stage. She was cleaning a toilet, but her voice was just as worthy of being heard. The story of Whitney and Maria became legendary in the music industry, but not in the way you might expect. It didn't become a story about a celebrity's charity or a lucky discovery. It became a story about seeing value in people regardless of their circumstances, about recognizing that talent doesn't only exist in convenient, accessible places. Record labels started sending A&R representatives to unconventional places: restaurants, retail stores, night shifts. Other established artists began paying more attention to the people working behind the scenes at their venues. The idea that extraordinary talent might be hiding in ordinary places became less of a novelty and more of a genuine possibility. Maria Santos went on to have a successful music career, but she never forgot where she came from. She continued living in Whitney's guest house for 3 years, not because she couldn't afford her own place, but because Whitney had become family. The boys grew up calling Whitney Tita, a Filipino term of endearment for a close family friend. When Whitney faced her own struggles in later years, Maria was there for her in the same way Whitney had been there for Maria. She'd show up at Whitney's house with home-cooked Filipino food, sit with her for hours, remind her of her own worth when Whitney struggled to see it in herself. "You saved my life," Maria told Whitney once. "Now let me help save yours." Their relationship became a testament to the idea that help doesn't just flow one direction, that the people we lift up often end up lifting us in return. Today, 15 years after that morning at JFK, Maria Santos is a Grammy-winning artist who's sold millions of albums. But if you visit her during the holidays, you'll find her in the kitchen cooking for her brothers' families, their kids running around laughing. You'll find someone who never forgot what it felt like to clean restrooms at 6 a.m., who never took for granted the miracle of being heard. The Maria Santos Foundation has helped over 5,000 young people pursue their dreams while caring for family members. Some became musicians, others became doctors, teachers, entrepreneurs, but all of them learned the same lesson. Maria learned that morning at JFK that your circumstances don't define your potential, and sometimes all it takes is one person paying attention to change everything. For me, that morning taught me something profound about my job. I'd spent years thinking my role was to manage logistics, to keep Whitney on schedule, to make sure everything ran smoothly. But that day, I learned that sometimes the most important thing is to slow down, to pay attention, to be present for the unexpected moments that change lives. We missed our flight that morning. Whitney's LA meetings had to be rescheduled. By every professional metric, that morning was a failure. But by every human metric, it was perfect. Because that's what I learned watching Whitney with Maria. That success isn't always about hitting your targets or staying on schedule. Sometimes success is about recognizing when something more important is happening and having the courage to stop everything else. The story of Whitney Houston discovering Maria Santos in an airport restroom reminds us that we never know who we might encounter in the course of an ordinary day. That extraordinary talent, extraordinary potential, extraordinary people are all around us, often hidden in plain sight. Whitney could have walked past that restroom. She could have ignored the singing. She could have thought, "That's nice," and continued to her gate. But she stopped. She listened. She paid attention, and in doing so, she changed a life. How many voices go unheard every day because no one's listening? How many people clean our buildings, serve our food, drive our cars, who have dreams and talents we'll never know about because we don't see them as anything more than their job titles? Maria Santos wasn't supposed to be discovered. She wasn't auditioning. She wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to be seen. She was just singing to make her work feel less lonely, trying to survive, taking care of her brothers the only way she knew how. But she was heard, and that made all the difference. If this story moves you, I want to challenge you to pay attention today. Listen for the voices that are singing when they think no one's listening. See the people who work the jobs most of us overlook. Ask yourself, who am I walking past without seeing? Who's in my life right now? Who might just need someone to pay attention? Because that's what Whitney taught me that morning at JFK. That sometimes changing the world is as simple as stopping, listening, and recognizing the extraordinary in the ordinary. And sometimes all it takes is one person believing in someone for everything to change. Maria Santos wasn't lucky. She was talented and hard-working and determined. What she needed wasn't luck. She needed to be heard. And on one ordinary morning at JFK Airport, Whitney Houston gave her that chance. That's the real magic of this story. Not that a celebrity helped someone, but that someone chose to see value where others saw only a job title. Someone chose to hear music where others heard only background noise. Someone chose to pay attention when it would have been so easy to just walk past. And in that choice, that simple decision to stop and listen, two lives changed. Not just Maria's, but Whitney's too. Because in helping Maria, Whitney rediscovered her own purpose, her own power to make a difference that had nothing to do with album sales or awards. The greatest performances aren't always on stages. Sometimes they're in airport restrooms at 6 a.m., and the greatest discoveries aren't always planned. Sometimes they happen when we're brave enough to pay attention to the beauty that's hiding in plain sight, waiting to be heard.